The Galactic Council's demands. The galaxy had always known peace, but not all civilizations shared it. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled over countless worlds, each one bending to their will. Their power was unmatched, and their influence stretched across the stars. The Council's word was law, and those who dared to challenge it rarely survived. They demanded tribute from all civilizations under their control, a sign of their superiority. And now, Earth, the last remaining independent world, was next on their list. It started with a message, a cold and threatening broadcast sent to every corner of the Earth. The humans had just finished their evening routines when the transmission began. Every screen, every device, flickered to life with the same message. It was a face, a creature with dark purple skin, several tentacles and eyes that glowed like dying stars. This was a member of the Galactic Council, an alien species known for their cold, calculated nature. The message was simple. To the leaders of Earth, the Galactic Council demands tribute. You will send 10% of your resources and 5,000 of your finest warriors as a show of loyalty. Failure to comply will result in immediate consequences. The choice is yours. The broadcast cut off abruptly. There was no room for negotiation, no chance to plead for mercy. The message was clear, and it echoed in the minds of every human who saw it. Panic spread through the planet. People gathered in groups, whispering in fear, unsure of what to do. Earth had always been a symbol of independence, a world that had never bowed to any alien empire. But the Council was different. They were not like the others who had come before them, seeking trade or knowledge. No, the Galactic Council ruled with an iron fist. Their ships could destroy entire fleets without breaking a sweat. Their weapons were beyond anything Earth had ever seen. How could humanity stand against such power? In the quiet of their underground bunkers, the leaders of Earth met in secret. The world's greatest minds and military commanders gathered to discuss their options. They knew they couldn't give in. The idea of sending resources and warriors to the Council felt like surrender, and that wasn't who humanity was. But what choice did they have? The Council had made it clear. They wanted tribute. If Earth refused, there would be no peace, and peace had always been a luxury that humanity had worked hard to earn. Wars had come and gone, but Earth had always fought back. Could they do it again? The leaders discussed for hours, weighing every option. Some argued for surrender, claiming that the cost of defying the Council was too great. Others insisted that humanity's spirit could not be broken. In the end, a decision was made. They would not bow. They would not give in. Instead, humanity would show the Council that they were not just another planet to be controlled. Earth would send a message of defiance. We can't just give in, General Carter, one of Earth's highest-ranking officers, said as he slammed his fist on the table. We've fought too long and too hard to let some alien empire tell us what to do. We have something the Council doesn't expect. We have a secret, a weapon they don't know about. The room fell silent. The leaders exchanged glances, uncertain at first. But the general's words stirred something deep inside them. Earth had a weapon. What could it be? A weapon powerful enough to stand against the might of the Galactic Council. We have a fleet, General Carter continued. A fleet of battleships, built in secret over the last decade. No one knows about it, until now. The room erupted into chatter. A fleet. But that was impossible. Earth had always been at a technological disadvantage when it came to space warfare. The idea of secretly building a fleet large enough to challenge the Council seemed like fantasy. But General Carter was confident. The fleet wasn't just any fleet. It was designed for one purpose: to defend Earth from any threat, no matter how great. The leaders quickly realized this was their only chance. They would reveal the fleet. They would face the Council head-on. And they would not back down. The tribute would never be sent. Instead, the Earth would send a message of its own. In the weeks that followed, Earth's military leaders prepared the fleet for battle. Hidden in deep space docking stations, the battleships were finally brought to life. These were not ordinary ships. They were massive, equipped with the most advanced technology Earth had ever developed. Their weapons were capable of wiping out entire alien fleets in minutes. Their shields could withstand the most powerful blasts. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. But even as the fleet was readied, doubt lingered in the hearts of some. Could humanity truly stand against the power of the Council? The aliens had defeated entire civilizations, bringing them to their knees. Would Earth be any different? "We have no choice," General Carter said to his crew as they prepared for launch. "We stand and fight. If we fall fighting. But we'll show the galaxy that humanity is not a species to be trifled with." And so, the Earth's fleet began its journey across the stars. The tension was palpable. The humans were ready to send their message, but the unknowns of space filled them with fear. Could they really pull this off? Or would the Galactic Council's wrath be the last thing humanity ever faced? As the fleet moved closer to the Council's homeworld, the atmosphere on Earth was tense. The fate of the planet now rested on this moment. Would humanity's response be enough to deter the Council, or would they be wiped from the galaxy forever? The galaxy held its breath as Earth's greatest trial was about to begin. Humanity's counterattack. As Earth's fleet traveled through the vast emptiness of space, there was a nervous excitement that spread among the crew. They knew what was at stake, and every soldier, every officer, was ready to fight. But as the distance between Earth and the Galactic Council's homeworld shrank, doubts began to creep into their minds. Could they really stand against the most powerful force in the galaxy? The pressure was building. The fleet was massive. It consisted of hundreds of battleships, all equipped with advanced weaponry and shields that had been secretly developed over the years. But the Galactic Council was no stranger to war. They had destroyed countless civilizations that thought they could challenge their power. What made Earth different? Captain Anderson, commander of the fleet's flagship, the Dawn of Humanity, stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by. He had always been a man of action, a soldier who believed in the power of humanity. But even he couldn't shake the thought that this mission could end in disaster. The Council's might was unparalleled, and even the fleet's weapons couldn't guarantee success. "We're close," he said, his voice calm but steady. "Prepare for full combat readiness. No mistakes. This is for Earth." The crew moved quickly, checking weapons, shields, and communication systems. Each one of them had been trained for moments like this, but the fear in their eyes was hard to hide. The unknown was terrifying. They were about to face an enemy that had never lost. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the whole world was watching. The message of defiance had spread across the planet, uniting people from every nation, every corner of the Earth. The streets were filled with people, standing together, praying for the fleet's success. The Galactic Council had demanded tribute, but humanity was offering something much more valuable: their resistance. The people of Earth were ready to fight for their freedom, for their right to remain independent. On the home front, leaders and scientists were working tirelessly, making sure that everything on Earth was in place in case the worst happened. They had no way of knowing if the fleet would succeed, but they knew that if Earth was to survive, they needed to fight back, no matter the cost. Back on the Dawn of Humanity, Captain Anderson received a message from Earth's Central Command. The Galactic Council had not only received Earth's refusal, but they were preparing for an immediate counterstrike. Their massive fleet was already mobilizing, and soon they would be upon Earth's fleet. "We don't have much time," Anderson said, turning to his officers. "We need to be ready for their attack. When they arrive, we need to hit them first." The crew understood. This was their one chance to send a message loud and clear to the Galactic Council. Earth would not be controlled, and Earth would never bow to tyranny. As the fleet closed in on the Council's homeworld, a sudden surge of light appeared on the radar. Ships, thousands of them. The Galactic Council's response had arrived sooner than expected. The Earth fleet was now outnumbered nearly 5-1, but they had something the Council didn't: heart. Humanity had always been able to face overwhelming odds and come out on top. From the wars of Earth's past to their space exploration, humans had learned how to turn the tables in impossible situations. The odds were high, but the Earth fleet was not afraid. "We'll show them what humanity can do," said Admiral Hayes, one of the fleet's lead commanders. "We won't just fight to survive. We'll fight to win." And with that, the fleet entered the shadow of the Galactic Council's capital. It was a world that seemed to hum with power, a massive fortress of technology and alien life. But the humans weren't intimidated. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared for years. The battle began with a sudden roar. The first wave of Earth's fleet opened fire, unleashing a barrage of missiles and energy blasts aimed directly at the approaching Council fleet. The ships shimmered with power, sending out blasts of energy that could turn planets to dust. But Earth's battleships were fast, nimble, and ready. They dodged incoming attacks with sharp precision, their shields absorbing the worst of it. The space around them lit up with flashes of brilliant color as the two fleets clashed. Explosions filled the void, and the air was thick with tension. The humans fought fiercely, coordinating their attacks with precision, showing the Council that they were not to be underestimated. But as the battle raged on, Earth's fleet began to notice something strange. The Council's ships, though powerful, seemed almost cautious. They didn't attack as aggressively as they had in previous battles with other civilizations. It was as though they were holding something back. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the fleet's communications. It was the same voice that had first threatened Earth, cold and calculating. "Humans," the voice boomed. "You are brave, but your resistance is futile. You cannot win. Surrender now, and we will spare your lives. Continue to fight, and you will all be destroyed." Captain Anderson's grip tightened on the controls of the dawn of humanity. He stared ahead, watching as the alien ships encircled their fleet, but he was unshaken. "We've heard that before," Anderson said, his voice steady. "Prepare for Phase 2 of the plan. Let's show them what Earth can really do." The battle wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. The humans weren't about to let the Council have the last word. With every passing second, they fought harder, pushing back with everything they had. Earth's greatest strength wasn't in their technology alone. It was in their unbreakable will. And as the battle raged on, the humans couldn't help but wonder. Would the Galactic Council finally understand that humanity could not be controlled, or would this be the final battle for Earth's freedom? The answer was coming soon. The turning point. The battle raged in space, a storm of flashing lights and twisting ships, but the humans aboard Earth's fleet weren't losing hope. Every shot fired, every evasive maneuver reminded them of what they were fighting for: freedom. As the Galactic Council's vast fleet surrounded them, it seemed as though Earth was outmatched. Their ships were powerful, but the Council's arsenal was legendary. No one had ever defied them for long. Yet, in the heart of every human fighter, there was something the Council couldn't measure, something they couldn't predict: the strength of human will. Captain Anderson stood on the bridge of the dawn of humanity, his eyes glued to the flickering radar. A sharp intake of breath escaped him as a huge explosion ripped through the space before them. One of Earth's ships had taken a hit, its hull ruptured, sending debris scattering into the vacuum. But even as the ship tumbled into space, another Earth vessel swerved in to take its place. The humans didn't stop. They couldn't. The message from the Galactic Council's representative still echoed through the communication channels. "Your resistance will be wiped out. Your fleet will be destroyed. Surrender, and we will show mercy." But there was no surrender in humanity's heart. Not today. Admiral Hayes, standing by Anderson's side, turned toward him. "Captain, we've been holding back as much as we can. Our fleet's weapons are fully charged, but the Council's ships are too well defended. They're shields. We need to change the game." Anderson interrupted, his eyes narrowing. We need to hit them where they least expect it." The crew, already on high alert, exchanged nervous glances. They had been planning for this moment for years, but now that it was here, doubts crept in. The Council had never lost a war, and no one in the galaxy had ever challenged them successfully. Humanity wasn't just outnumbered. They were fighting against the most powerful force in the known universe. But there was one thing the humans had that the Council didn't. The Council's fleet might be advanced, their ships larger and more intimidating, but the humans had something deeper: cunning. Earth's ships had been built with adaptability in mind, their tactics flexible. Humans had always relied on innovation to solve problems, no matter how impossible they seemed. "Captain, if we don't act now, we'll be trapped," one of the officers reported urgently. "Their ships are closing in on us faster than we can reposition." Anderson's mind raced. His hand hovered over the ship's control panel, his fingers grazing the buttons that could change the course of history. Then he made a decision. It wasn't the traditional military strategy, but it was their only shot. He slammed his fist down onto the comms button, his voice booming across every ship in the fleet. "Listen up, everyone. It's time to play our final card. We're going to engage their fleet using the graviton shield we've been developing in secret. We've only tested it in small scale, but we have no choice. Our ships can't hold out much longer without it." The crew froze for a moment. The graviton shield was humanity's most ambitious invention, a technology that could manipulate gravity, bend space around them, and disorient any enemy fleet trying to close in. It had never been tested on such a large scale, and its potential was unpredictable. If it worked, the Council's fleet would be thrown into chaos. If it failed, Earth's fleet would be left completely exposed. But Anderson didn't hesitate. "Activate the graviton shield. We can win this. Humanity doesn't back down." The first graviton shield flickered to life on the dawn of humanity, and an intense wave of energy spread through the fleet. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The shields created an enormous distortion in space, causing enemy ships to lose their bearings. Suddenly, they couldn't aim accurately, couldn't track the movements of the human ships as they had before. The Council's fleet, which had been closing in with unstoppable force, now found themselves disoriented, drifting in unpredictable patterns. Their weapons were firing at nothing, their shields flickering wildly as they tried to stabilize. It was a moment of chaos that no one had expected. But just as the humans began to believe they had the upper hand, something else happened. A massive glowing ship emerged from the darkness, far larger than any of the other ships in the Galactic Council's fleet. It was their flagship, the Imperium, a ship that had been rumored to be nearly indestructible. With an overwhelming roar, it opened fire on the fleet, its weapons aimed directly at Earth's flagship. The dawn of humanity shook violently as a blast hit its shields, but they held firm. Barely. The Imperium was clearly the last line of defense, the Council's final answer to Earth's resistance. But the humans weren't backing down. Anderson gave the order for the fleet to regroup and fight back with everything they had. "We're not just fighting for survival," he said, his voice echoing through the command deck. "We're fighting for Earth, for every human alive, and for every human yet to be born." The dawn of humanity moved into position, unleashing a barrage of missiles and laser fire toward the Imperium. The massive ship fired back, sending shockwaves through space with each hit, but it wasn't enough to break through Earth's determination. And then something unexpected occurred. The graviton shield technology was beginning to overload. It was unstable, pushing the limits of what had been tested. The fleet was at risk of being pulled apart by the very force it had created to fight the Council. "Brace for impact," shouted an officer as alarms blared across the ship. But Anderson, calm and resolute, had already come up with a plan. "It's all or nothing now," he said. "We use the graviton shield to push them back, one final time." The fleet gathered all its strength, and with a mighty push, the Earth fleet launched everything they had toward the Imperium. Humanity was now fully committed to this battle, and they weren't going to lose. The final push. The dawn of humanity trembled under the power of its own weaponry. The graviton shield, a piece of technology born from years of human ingenuity, now hummed with dangerous energy, threatening to overload at any moment. It was humanity's final gambit, and as Captain Anderson surveyed the bridge, he knew there was no turning back. "Admiral Hayes, status on the fleet?" Anderson asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging outside the command center. Hayes quickly scanned the data. "We've taken heavy damage, Captain. The graviton shield is holding, but it's unstable. We can't keep this up for long. We need to end this now." A chill ran through Anderson's spine. He had always known the stakes, but now they were more real than ever. The Imperium, the flagship of the Galactic Council, loomed ominously ahead. Larger, more powerful, and seemingly indestructible, it was the Council's final weapon, a weapon that could crush them all in an instant. "We don't have the luxury of time," Anderson muttered, his hand resting on the command panel. He glanced toward the communications officer. "Send the signal. Activate all remaining battle systems. Every ship, every missile, every weapon. Now." A ripple of energy spread through the fleet. Earth's ships, though battered, responded to the command with precision. It was a sight to behold. Ships of all shapes and sizes, each firing everything they had toward the Imperium. Laser beams, explosive projectiles, and ion blasts tore through space, an endless storm of destruction aimed directly at the heart of the Council's flagship. But the Imperium was no ordinary ship. With its immense size, it could weather blows that would destroy any other vessel. It fired back with devastating accuracy, the power of its weapons shaking the space around them. A massive explosion lit up the dark void, followed by the sudden silence of space. A few ships from Earth's fleet had been wiped out in the blink of an eye. It was a brutal reminder that their survival wasn't guaranteed. On the bridge, the lights flickered as Anderson watched helplessly. The dawn of humanity was taking hits, each one more severe than the last. The graviton shield crackled dangerously, its power reserves rapidly depleting. Soon, it would be powerless to stop the incoming fire. "Captain, the graviton shield can't take much more," warned the engineer, his voice strained with panic. "We need to disengage or we'll lose the entire fleet." Anderson didn't even flinch. His gaze remained locked on the Imperium, its massive silhouette still looming above them. The Admiral was right, but something deep within Anderson told him there was still a way to tip the balance of power in humanity's favor. "Reprogram the shield," Anderson commanded. "Redirect its power. I want a focused pulse, all concentrated on the Imperium's engines. If we can disable them, their fleet will fall apart." Hayes stared at Anderson, disbelief in his eyes. "That's a 1 in a million chance, Captain. If the shield fails, we're done for." "There is no fail here," Anderson said, his voice unwavering. "We're humans. We adapt or we die." The command was given, and the tech crew scrambled to implement the changes. For a moment, the entire bridge was silent. Only the soft hum of machinery and the distant sounds of chaos outside the ship filled the air. Every crew member knew that this could be their last moment. Then, with a sudden surge of energy, the graviton shield activated again. But this time, the energy concentrated in a focused beam, aimed directly at the Imperium's propulsion systems. The moment the pulse hit, it was like the universe held its breath. A violent ripple of energy spread through the Imperium's hull, shaking the massive ship from the inside out. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The Imperium continued its bombardment, and Earth's fleet seemed ready to collapse under the weight of its weapons. But then something extraordinary happened. The Imperium's massive engines flickered, then sputtered. A deep groan echoed from the heart of the ship, and the once pristine hull of the flagship began to warp. Its shield systems failed, and its weapons fell silent. The Imperium had been disabled. The Council's pride, their ultimate weapon, was now crippled. "Yes," Hayes shouted, pumping his fist in the air. A cheer erupted across the bridge, but Anderson remained calm, his eyes focused on the chaos unfolding before them. The enemy was stunned, but the fight was far from over. Send a message to all ships. All units, focus on the enemy's remaining fleet. No mercy. We finish this now. The dawn of humanity's guns roared to life once more, unleashing another barrage. Earth's remaining ships followed suit, their strikes now precise and lethal, targeting weak points in the disoriented Council fleet. The battle was shifting, slowly but surely. But the battle wasn't won yet. The Imperium's fall had sent shockwaves through the remaining ships of the Galactic Council's armada, but they weren't giving up easily. The remaining Council forces fought back with desperation, knowing that their survival depended on it. Their ships regrouped, their formations growing tighter as they prepared for one final assault. And then, just as humanity was about to claim victory, an unexpected message cut through the chaos. Earth, you think this battle is yours. The voice of the Galactic Council's High Commander echoed in their comms, cold and menacing. You have no idea what you've just started. Anderson's heart sank as the words washed over him. He wasn't sure if it was a threat or a warning, but he knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The hidden weapon. The message from the Galactic Council's High Commander echoed like a death sentence across the bridge of the dawn of humanity. Captain Anderson's mind raced, trying to process the threat. You have no idea what you've just started. Those words haunted him, their meaning unclear, but ominous. The crew scrambled in response, knowing that they had just struck a decisive blow against the Council, yet the true cost of this war was still hidden in the depths of space. Anderson's fingers drummed on the armrest of his chair, the tension in the air palpable. The Imperium was crippled, but the enemy was far from beaten. Admiral Hayes, Anderson said, his voice sharp with urgency, what's the status on our fleet? Hayes' expression remained grim as he scanned the damage reports. We're holding, Captain. Barely. Most of the dawn of humanity's systems are intact, but our shields are down. Several ships have been lost, and the remaining enemy fleet is regrouping. They'll be ready for another push soon. But it wasn't the enemy fleet that Anderson was worried about. No, it was the threat behind the threat. The Galactic Council was known for its ruthless strategies, and if the High Commander's words were any indication, they had more hidden up their sleeves than anyone could have anticipated. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us, Anderson said, eyes narrowing. Prepare for another wave. All ships, keep your distance and avoid clustered formations. Hayes nodded, his mind already calculating the optimal strategies to keep their remaining forces intact. But just as he turned to relay the orders, a piercing alarm blared throughout the ship. It was followed by an eerie silence. What is it? Anderson demanded, standing abruptly. Unknown anomaly detected. The sensor officer reported, confusion lacing their voice. It's coming from the direction of the Imperium. No, it's not just the Imperium. It's... The officer froze as a strange ripple of energy warped the space around them. Anderson's stomach dropped. The Imperium's engines may have failed, but something else was happening. A vast object, cloaked in some kind of electromagnetic veil, was emerging from the heart of the enemy fleet. Captain, Hayes shouted. It's enormous. The size, it's beyond anything we've ever seen. A shadow stretched across the stars, obscuring everything in its path. It was massive, a floating titan of dark metal and incomprehensible technology. As it came into view, Anderson's mind raced. This wasn't just another ship. This was something different. This was the hidden weapon, the one that the Galactic Council had kept in reserve. Sir, it's emitting strange signals. No known energy source is consistent with what we're seeing, the sensor officer reported, their voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. It's like it's alive. Anderson didn't wait for further analysis. He could already see the massive warship positioning itself in the battle's fray. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a grotesque, monolithic structure, seemingly built to strike fear into the heart of any who faced it. "That's it," Anderson said, his voice cold and composed despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "That's their true weapon." The dawn of humanity shuddered as the unknown vessel fired its first shot. The energy blast crackled through space, distorting the fabric of the universe itself. The shockwave hit the Earth fleet before they even had a chance to react, sending several ships spiraling out of control, their systems overloaded by the sheer force of the blast. "What kind of weapon is that?" shouted Hayes, looking at the damage reports in disbelief. "It's not a weapon," Anderson replied, his mind calculating the implications of what they were facing. "It's a weaponized gravitational anomaly. The blast's gravity wave is disrupting our entire fleet systems. If we don't stop it now, it'll tear us apart." "How do we fight it?" Hayes asked, the fear in his voice barely concealed. Anderson's gaze remained focused on the ominous ship, a chill settling in his chest. The answer wasn't easy, but there was no choice. "We don't have the luxury of time. We fight it with everything we've got, but we also need to stop the gravitational field it's generating. If we can find its core, disable it." Before Anderson could finish his thought, the bridge was rocked by another explosion. This time, the source was closer. The strange vessel had fired again. And this time, it wasn't just a blast. It was a gravity pulse so powerful that it threatened to collapse space itself. "Brace for impact," Anderson shouted, gripping the armrests tightly as the dawn of humanity's artificial gravity flickered in and out of stability. Crew members scrambled to maintain their positions. "We're losing control of the ship," shouted the engineer, panic creeping into their voice. "The gravitational field is ripping apart our systems." "Not if I can help it," Anderson said, determination setting in. "Admiral Hayes, prepare to launch all remaining ships on my command. We can't fight this monster alone. We need to split their forces." Hayes nodded sharply, but before he could respond, a voice broke in over the comms. It was the voice of the Galactic Council's High Commander again, this time dripping with arrogance. "You truly think you can win? You're only delaying the inevitable. This weapon is the ultimate force in the galaxy. Once it finishes with you, Earth will be nothing more than a memory." Anderson's heart pounded in his chest, but he stood taller than ever. "I've seen what humans can do under pressure. We don't bend to threats. We fight back." With a look of final resolve, Anderson gave the order. "Launch all ships. Full power to weapons. It's time to show them what humanity is capable of." As Earth's remaining fleet prepared for a final desperate charge, Anderson knew they faced their greatest challenge yet. But the fire in his heart burned brighter than any weapon the Galactic Council could throw at them. Humanity had survived worse. Humanity had never backed down. And today, they would prove it once again. The final stand. The stars above Earth seemed to flicker with a strange, unnatural energy as the battle raged on. The dawn of humanity and its allies, battered but resolute, were locked in a deadly standoff with the monstrous ship the Galactic Council had unleashed. It was no longer just a war. It had become humanity's defining moment. On the bridge, Captain Anderson stood like a statue, his gaze fixed on the alien behemoth that hovered ominously in space. The gravitational anomaly emitted pulses of energy, each one more destructive than the last, warping the very fabric of the battlefield. The dawn of humanity was struggling, its systems fluctuating as the gravity field wreaked havoc on their ship's integrity. Their once mighty fleet was now scattered, crippled by the sheer force of the alien weapon. "We're running out of time," Admiral Hayes said, his voice tense, his brow drenched in sweat. "If we can't disable that ship soon, we'll be nothing more than floating debris." Anderson's mind was racing, every second counting as if it could be his last. A high commander's mocking words still echoed in his ears. "You're only delaying the inevitable." But that wasn't the human way. Anderson had witnessed too much, fought through too much. Humanity didn't back down. They never gave up. "We need a plan," Anderson muttered to himself, staring at the swirling chaos of the battle. He turned to Hayes, his eyes steely with determination. "We can't fight this thing head-on. Not with brute force. We need to outsmart it." "Outsmart it?" Hayes blinked in disbelief. "With all due respect, Captain, how do you plan to outsmart a ship that can distort gravity itself?" "Not the ship," Anderson said, his voice gaining strength. "The anomaly. The power core inside that ship must be generating the gravitational pulses. If we can hit that core, we might be able to collapse its field and shut down the weapon. But we'll need to get close, and that means getting past the Council's defenses." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Close? Are you out of your mind? We'll be vaporized before we even get within range." Anderson smiled grimly. "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. We need to act fast, before they expect it. We're not just going to fight. We're going to give them a taste of their own medicine." With the plan set into motion, Anderson issued the command. The remaining ships of the Earth fleet, though battered, were still flying. They had little choice but to follow their captain's lead, even if the odds seemed stacked against them. "We'll need all the firepower we have left," Anderson said, gripping the controls with a steady hand. "Weapons systems online. Prepare for a high-speed maneuver. All ships, fall into formation. We're going straight for that core." The crew around him worked frantically, adjusting the systems for the final assault. The tension on the bridge was so thick it could be cut with a knife. But Anderson was unwavering. This was humanity's final stand, their last chance to prove that they wouldn't be intimidated by the Galactic Council or any of their terrifying weapons. As they prepared, a sudden burst of light filled the viewport. The dawn of humanity lurched forward as the battle intensified. The alien fleet had regrouped, preparing for the final push to wipe out humanity for good. The ship was now closer to the anomaly, the dark vessel looming over them like a harbinger of doom. "Prepare for impact," Anderson ordered, his voice calm yet authoritative. "This is it." As the fleet advanced toward the enemy, the massive ship let loose another devastating gravity pulse. It struck the Earth fleet with the power of 1,000 storms, knocking out shields and sending several ships spiraling into the abyss of space. The dawn of humanity rocked violently, its hull groaning under the pressure. "Hold on," Hayes shouted, struggling to keep his footing as the ship rocked again. But Anderson didn't flinch. His eyes remained locked on the distant enemy vessel, the dark core at its center. His heart pounded, but he knew this was their only shot. "Full power to engines," Anderson barked. "We're going in." With a roar, the dawn of humanity surged forward, plowing through the debris of destroyed ships and debris. The remaining ships followed, forming a tight formation as they barreled toward the heart of the enemy's forces. The gravity pulses hammered against their ships, but the humans pushed forward with a relentless determination. And then, as they neared the behemoth, a strange stillness settled over the battlefield. The gravitational pulse seemed to weaken for just a moment. Anderson's heart skipped a beat. This was the chance they needed. The core was within range. "Lock onto the core," he commanded, his hand steady as he worked the controls. The dawn of humanity was a mere few clicks from the massive vessel, now vulnerable to their strike. "Fire everything we have," Hayes yelled. The full force of humanity's weapons, cannons, missiles, and energy blasts, rained down on the core. Each shot landed with precision, chipping away at the shields surrounding the gravitational anomaly. The core trembled, the energy pulse flickering as though in panic. But just as they thought victory was within reach, a new voice filled the comms. The High Commander of the Galactic Council spoke again, this time with unmasked fury. "You cannot win. The core is invincible. No one can destroy it." Anderson's eyes burned with defiance. "We're humans. We don't accept defeat. Not today." With one final surge of power, the dawn of humanity unleashed a devastating shot directly at the core. The gravitational anomaly pulsed violently, expanding and contracting in desperate final breaths. The entire ship seemed to tremble, its structure groaning as though it were alive. For a split second, Everything went silent. And then, a massive explosion ripped through space. The gravitational anomaly collapsed, sending shockwaves of energy outward, obliterating the massive ship in a flash of light. Anderson's heart stopped. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the entire fleet had vanished, consumed by the explosion. But then, slowly, the dust of battle began to settle. The Galactic Council's weapon was destroyed. The aftermath, and a new beginning. The silence that followed the explosion was deafening. For a moment, it felt as though the very universe had taken a breath. The battlefield, once a cacophony of laser blasts and gravity pulses, now seemed eerily still, as though the cosmos itself was holding its breath in the wake of humanity's bold victory. Captain Anderson stood motionless on the bridge of the dawn of humanity, his hands steady on the controls. His heart raced in his chest, but the adrenaline of battle had not yet faded. The explosion of the Galactic Council's flagship was still fresh in his mind. He had witnessed the blast from the cockpit, the fireball engulfing everything in its wake. It was a blow to the heart of their enemies, a statement that humanity was not to be trifled with. "We did it," Admiral Hayes said softly, almost in disbelief. His voice echoed through the quiet bridge, breaking the spell of silence. But Anderson wasn't ready to celebrate. Not yet. Something didn't feel right. As the last remnants of the massive ship drifted into the cold abyss of space, the remaining ships of the Earth fleet began to regroup, though many of their comrades had not made it out of the battle. A painful reminder of the price humanity had paid for this victory. Yet there was something else, something that made Anderson uneasy. "There's no sign of the Galactic Council's remaining forces," Hayes said, his eyes scanning the empty expanse of space. The enemy fleet had vanished without a trace. Could it be possible they're retreating? "It's too soon to assume they're gone for good," Anderson replied, his voice tense. "We've just dealt a crushing blow to them, but I don't think they'll let us off so easily. There's something more here, something we don't understand." The words hung in the air, and Anderson's crew exchanged uneasy glances. Even in the wake of their triumph, an unsettling feeling gnawed at them. There was no celebrating yet. The Galactic Council had been humiliated, but the war was far from over. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life, and the voice of a fleet commander filled the room. "Captain Anderson, you need to see this." Without hesitation, Anderson motioned for the transmission to be put on the main screen. As the image flickered to life, the crew of the Dawn of Humanity gasped. A new fleet had emerged from the shadows of deep space. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Countless ships, each larger than anything the Earth fleet had ever encountered. The ships gleamed with an ominous dark energy, and their designs were far more advanced than even the most cutting-edge human technology. They looked like they were forged from the very fabric of space itself. "That's not possible," Hayes whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The Council, they'd been holding back this entire time." Anderson's heart sank as he realized the truth. The Galactic Council had not been defeated. They had merely been toying with humanity. This new fleet was the real threat. The Council had only shown a fraction of its power. The enemy ships began to move forward with terrifying precision, their engines glowing a menacing blue. The remnants of the Earth fleet, still battered from the earlier battle, were no match for the overwhelming numbers and power of these new adversaries. They had underestimated the Council, and now it was time to face the consequences. "We need to prepare for what's coming," Anderson said, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "Every ship, get ready for combat. We need to defend Earth. We've got one chance to prove that we're not just a nuisance." Admiral Hayes nodded, but even he couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. The new fleet was an unholy force, an unstoppable tide. Humanity had won a battle, but the war was far from over. As the Earth fleet scrambled to reassemble, a new challenge emerged. The Galactic Council had shown no mercy. They had allowed the humans to feel a moment of triumph before revealing their true strength. This was the Council's final play, a fleet of unstoppable warships designed to crush any resistance in their path. It was a new chapter in a war that had only just begun. But Anderson would not back down. The battle for Earth was far from over. He looked out into the stars, seeing the dark ships of the enemy fleet closing in. His heart burned with determination. Humanity had fought for its place in the galaxy once, and it would do so again, this time with the knowledge that they could not be broken. The dawn of humanity and its fleet would fight until the very last breath. The Council might think they had the upper hand, but they had forgotten one crucial thing. Humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons or their ships. It was in their will to survive, their relentless desire to fight for what was theirs. This was not the end. It was just the beginning of humanity's fight for freedom.